Commander Sarah Chen stared at the alien transmission display, her coffee growing cold as the universal translator worked through the message that would change everything. The words appeared slowly on her screen aboard the UES Defiant, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel. To the species known as humans, you are summoned to serve as neutral messengers in the Galactic Throne War. Your primitive technology and isolated location make you suitable for this purpose. Sarah's second-in-command, Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, leaned over her shoulder. Suitable? That's the most backhanded compliment I've ever heard from aliens. The message continued with coordinates to a neutral space station called Haven Point, located exactly between the territories of two massive galactic empires. The Zephyrian hegemony controlled the galactic north, while the Chromoc Dominion held the south. For 3,000 years, they had maintained an uneasy peace. Now that peace was shattered. Sarah called an emergency meeting in the ship's briefing room. Her crew of 30 specialists gathered around the holographic display showing the galactic map. Red zones marked active battle areas spreading like an infection across star systems. The Zephyrians and Chromoc have been preparing for this war for decades, Sarah explained, pulling up intelligence files they had gathered during their 2-year mission. Both sides possess weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. They need a neutral party to carry messages between their fleets to prevent total annihilation. Dr. Elizabeth Torres, the ship's xenobiologist, raised her hand. Why us? There must be dozens of spacefaring species with better technology. That's exactly the point, Sarah replied. Every other species has already chosen sides or been conquered. We're the only ones they both consider too primitive to be a threat. The crew exchanged glances. Chief Engineer James Park spoke up. Our fastest ships can barely reach half the speed of light. Their scouts move at 10 times that speed. We'd be sitting ducks if either side decides we're not neutral enough. Sarah nodded grimly. The message also included technical specifications for a quantum communicator. They're willing to give us the technology to communicate instantly across any distance. It's a test of our trustworthiness. The quantum communicator blueprints were beyond anything humanity had imagined. The device could send messages through folded spacetime, making real-time communication possible across the galaxy. For a species still struggling with fusion power, it was like being handed fire by the gods. Dr. Torres studied the plans. This technology could advance our civilization by 500 years overnight. But there's got to be a catch. The catch became clear when they arrived at Haven Point 3 weeks later. The space station was a massive structure, 20 kilometers long and shaped like a spinning cylinder. But it was completely empty except for automated systems maintaining life support. As the Defiant docked, Sarah received another transmission. This time it came from both empires simultaneously, their messages perfectly synchronized. Human messenger vessel, you will establish your base of operations here. Your first assignment begins immediately. Fleet Admiral THYSS of the Zephyrian hegemony wishes to communicate terms with War Commander Gracton of the Chromoc Dominion. You will carry this message. Sarah found herself holding 2 sealed containers, each the size of a briefcase. One contained a message from the Zephyrians, the other space for the Chromoc response. The containers were made from some kind of metal that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. These message pods are genetically locked, the transmission continued. Only your species can open them, and only at their intended destinations. Any attempt to breach them by other species will result in their destruction. Lieutenant Rodriguez examined one of the pods with their scanners. The metal doesn't match anything in our databases. It's like nothing we've ever seen. Dr. Torres was more concerned about the biological locks. How do they know enough about human genetics to create something like this? We've only been in contact for a few weeks. Sarah made the decision that would define humanity's role in the war. We're going to accept this mission. But we do it on our terms. We establish our own protocols for neutrality. The journey to the Zephyrian fleet took 6 days at maximum speed. As they approached the coordinates, space itself seemed to come alive with massive warships. The Zephyrian vessels were elegant and curved, looking more like works of art than instruments of war. Each ship was easily 5 times the size of the Defiant. Fleet Admiral THYSS received them aboard her flagship, the Eternal Dawn. She was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and forearms that moved in perfect coordination. Her eyes held an intelligence that made Sarah feel like she was being studied by a scientist examining a new species. "So you are the humans," THYSS said, her voice carrying musical undertones. "Your reputation as primitive but honest creatures precedes you." Sarah bit back her first response and instead handed over the message pod. "We're here as neutral messengers, nothing more." THYSS opened the pod with a touch, and holographic text appeared in the air between them. Sarah couldn't read the alien script, but she could see THYSS's expression change from curiosity to anger. "The Chromach dare to demand our surrender of the stellar gates? They know we would rather die than give up our most sacred technology." Sarah had no idea what stellar gates were, but she could see this negotiation was going to be more complicated than anyone expected. "Do you wish to send a response?" THYSS dictated a message in her own language while her aide recorded it in the response pod. "Tell Grakton that the Zephyrian hegemony remembers the Treaty of Distant Stars. We will not be the first to break the ancient laws of war." The return journey to Haven Point gave Sarah time to research what little humanity knew about these two empires. The stellar gates appeared to be some kind of transportation network that allowed instant travel between star systems. The Chromach wanted them, but the Zephyrians considered them sacred. Back at Haven Point, Sarah transferred the response pod to a shuttle and set course for the Chromach fleet. The contrast was immediately obvious. Where Zephyrian ships were graceful, Chromach vessels were brutal and efficient. They looked like flying fortresses, all sharp angles and weapon arrays. War Commander Grakton was exactly what Sarah expected from the ship designs. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in what looked like natural armor plating. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Humans! I expected you to be larger, given your reputation for violence." Sarah was getting tired of alien assumptions about humanity. "Our reputation for violence is greatly exaggerated." Grakton laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Your species destroyed 2 of your own cities with atomic fire, then spent decades pointing thousands of such weapons at each other. You call that exaggerated?" The message pod opened at Grakton's touch, displaying THYSS's response. His reaction was immediate and explosive. "She dares mention the treaty? After what her people did to the outer colonies?" Sarah realized she was witnessing 3,000 years of hatred and mistrust. What exactly happened with the outer colonies? Grakton's eyes narrowed. "Your species truly knows nothing of our history." The Zephyrians promised protection to 17 colony worlds. When the Void Plague came, they abandoned those worlds to save their core systems. Billions died. The response pod recorded Grakton's message, but he also handed Sarah a data crystal. "This contains the true history of the war. Study it well, human. You cannot carry messages between us if you do not understand what we fight for." On the return journey to Haven Point, Sarah plugged the data crystal into their computers. The history that unfolded was staggering in its complexity and tragedy. The Zephyrian hegemony and Chromach dominion had once been allies, working together to explore and colonize the galaxy. The Void Plague was a mysterious disease that consumed organic matter at the molecular level. When it appeared in the outer colonies, the Zephyrians had made the calculated decision to quarantine the infected systems. The Chromach saw this as betrayal and abandonment. The Zephyrians argued it was necessary to prevent galactic extinction. Neither side had ever forgiven the other. Dr. Torres studied the plague data with growing excitement. "Sarah, look at this. The Void Plague has a specific molecular signature. Our medical databases show something similar." She pulled up human medical records from the 21st century. "We called it the Devonshire virus. It was a bioweapon that got out of control during the resource wars. We found a cure, but it took 20 years. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Are you saying humanity has already faced something like the Void Plague? Not something like it. This is the exact same pathogen. Somehow, it reached Earth 300 years before we made contact with any alien species. The implications were staggering. If humanity had already defeated the Void Plague, they possessed knowledge that could change the entire war. But, sharing that information would definitely violate their neutrality. Back at Haven Point, Sarah called another crew meeting. The stakes had suddenly become much higher than simple message delivery. We have information that could end this war, she told her crew. But, using it would make us participants, not messengers. Chief Engineer Park disagreed. If we can save lives by sharing what we know, don't we have a moral obligation to do so? Dr. Torres supported Sarah's caution. Both sides would immediately want to control us if they knew what we possessed. We'd become a target instead of a neutral party. Lieutenant Rodriguez had been studying the tactical displays. There's something else we need to consider. Both fleets are positioning for a major battle. If we're caught in the middle when they start shooting, our neutrality won't protect us. Sarah made her decision. We continue as messengers for now. But, we start preparing for the possibility that this war might force us to choose sides whether we want to or not. The next message exchange confirmed her worst fears. Both sides were demanding the same thing from each other: complete surrender. Neither was willing to negotiate. Admiral THYSS was pacing her command deck when Sarah arrived with Gracton's latest message. The Chromot grow more unreasonable with each exchange. They demand we turn over all our stellar gate technology and submit to their rule. What exactly do the stellar gates do? Sarah asked. THYSS gestured to a holographic display showing the galaxy. They allow instant transportation between any 2 points in space. My ancestors built this network over thousands of years. It is the foundation of our civilization. Sarah was beginning to understand the real scope of this conflict. If the Chromot controlled the gates, they could move their fleets anywhere instantly. Exactly. They could conquer every world in the galaxy within days. We cannot allow this technology to fall into their hands. Gracton's perspective was equally compelling. The Zephyrians used the gates to maintain their stranglehold on galactic trade. Every species that wants to travel between stars must pay tribute to them. We seek to liberate the galaxy from their economic tyranny. Both sides had valid points, which made Sarah's job even harder. The Zephyrians were protecting technology that could be devastating in the wrong hands. The Chromot were fighting against what amounted to a galactic monopoly. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Torres had been analyzing the quantum communicator technology the aliens had given them. Sarah, I think I understand why they chose us as messengers. She pulled up a complex diagram showing quantum field interactions. This communicator doesn't just send messages. It creates a quantum entanglement between the sender and receiver. Every time we carry a message, we're creating a permanent communication link. Sarah felt the pieces clicking into place. They're not using us as messengers. They're turning us into a galactic communication network. Exactly. Human genetic patterns seem to be uniquely compatible with their quantum technology. We're not just carrying messages, we're becoming living quantum communicators. The implications were enormous. If humanity could establish quantum communication links throughout the galaxy, they would become indispensable to every spacefaring species. It was a form of power neither empire had anticipated. Lieutenant Rodriguez was studying fleet movements on the tactical display. Both sides are massing for a major battle. We have maybe 12 hours before they start shooting at each other. Sarah realized their time as simple messengers was about to end. Prepare the ship for emergency departure. And, send a message to Earth. Tell them we may have found humanity's place in the galaxy, but it's not what anyone expected. As the Defiant prepared to leave Haven Point, Sarah watched both alien fleets positioning themselves for battle. Thousands of ships, each carrying millions of lives, were about to engage in a conflict that could destroy entire civilizations. Humanity had been thrust into the middle of a war they didn't understand, carrying messages between enemies who refused to listen to reason. But they had also discovered something that could change everything. The question now was whether they could figure out how to use their unique abilities to prevent a galactic catastrophe. The quantum communicator on Sarah's wrist chimed with an incoming message from Earth. Admiral Chen, her mother and head of Earth's defense forces, appeared as a hologram. Sarah, we've been monitoring your transmissions. The Earth Council has made a decision. You're authorized to take whatever action you deem necessary to protect human interests. But, remember, the survival of our species may depend on the choices you make in the next few hours. Sarah looked out at the alien fleets preparing for war and made a choice that would define humanity's future among the stars. They were no longer just messengers. They were about to become players in a game that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The quantum communicator chimed again, this time with message.